Okay, guys and girls. So yesterday we spent some good amount of time on what American imperialism was, how it led to Hawaii and Alaska being obtained by the United States, how it improved relations with China and Japan. Now we're going to look at how imperialism kind of leads to a war, though it's not going to necessarily be America looking for a war, but you're going to kind of see how imperialism in itself leads to a war with Spain. So we're going to spend the next 2 or 3 days on the Spanish-American War. It is not as big of a war as maybe the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, but it is critical for the United States, even though it is a very short war. So let's kind of get a sense of how this starts a little bit. So the focus question is, how does America get into a conflict with Spain in 1898 during American imperialism? All right. So we're going to start with this do now. Just pause the video after I read it. Give yourself a second and try and think of this question. Why is what's going on in Cuba important to the United States? All right, so obviously we have the United States here with our state of Florida, and then we have a separate country of Cuba. Okay, Cuba is not owned by the United States. It's a separate country. So why is what's going on in Cuba important to the United States? So pause the video, think about it, and then once you think you're ready for an answer, unpause the video and see if you're correct. So ultimately, Cuba is important to the United States because it is so close in proximity to the United States. Okay, it's only 90 miles. Okay, Havana, Cuba to Miami, Florida is like only 90 miles. Not very far at all. That's like driving from the Bronx to like the Jersey Shore. It's not a long amount of travel. So it is generally important to the United States because it is so close to us. Okay, I often give this example. If there's if there's a fight going on outside of my classroom that has nothing to do with me, and you could hear the people fighting and screaming, like it kind of does affect you. Right. So if there's a conflict going on in a country very, very close away, ultimately that's going to cause you some problems. And that's kind of what's going to happen here. Now, you're going to see this a lot throughout U.S. imperialism. America is really going to try and have good relationships with the countries close to them. Okay, Mexico, Cuba, Canada, right? And some other countries we'll take a look at. But you're going to see a conflict that starts in Cuba that has nothing to do with the United States that's going to kind of spill over into the United States, and I'll explain what I mean. So definitely copy this down. I'm going to become more of a world history teacher for this part of the assignment, but I need to establish what's going on in Cuba. And we're going to try and figure out why this was such a problem. Okay? So let's first go over what's going on in Cuba. So Spain is imperial, okay, like the United States, like Britain, like all the countries are. They are imperial, and they are in control of Cuba in the late 1800s, okay? Kind of like how the Great Britain used to control the United States, the country of Spain used to control the country of Cuba, okay? They were imperial for them, and, you guys should understand how this kind of works at this point. Now, very similar to the Americans back in the late 1700s, the people in Cuba wanted to revolt and gain independence from Spain, okay? So many of the people start to revolt in Cuba, okay? And those Cuban people, those Cuban revolutionaries wanted to overthrow the Spanish government. And just an aside note, the people of Spain, the people of Cuba did not like the Spanish government, specifically because of this person named General Weyler. He was the leader of Cuba at the time. He was of Spanish descent, very similar to King George III. But unlike King George III, General Weyler would actually kill a lot of the Cuban people. So he was known as a brutal leader, and he was not very well liked by the people of Cuba. Therefore, they wanted to revolt and overthrow the general and overthrow the government and be independent. So war breaks out, okay? Cuban Revolutionary War, basically. So America has a tough decision because the war is so close to our country, even though it has nothing to do with us. America has a tough decision. They do not know if they should do this. Should they support the Cuban independence? I mean, think about it. This is very similar to what America did 120 years ago, fighting for the Revolutionary War. Should they do that? The Spanish leader is a brutal leader. Spain's maybe not treating Cuba so well. Maybe we should support the Cubans in this. Okay? Number two, maybe they should defend the Spanish because the Spanish have very strong military, and maybe that's not a country you want to mess with. So maybe we should just kind of support the Spanish and let them keep stay in control of Cuba to keep the relationship with Spain very nice. Or the third thing is they're going to choose to stay neutral and not get involved. Now, this is like when any verbal fight breaks out, maybe between your two friends. Maybe one friend is fighting with another friend and you're kind of caught in the middle. Do you defend one friend? Do you defend the other? Or do you stay, neutral and not involved? That's a choice that a lot of you guys maybe have to deal with growing up as middle schoolers and eventually high schoolers. People are going to get into arguments. People are going to get into fights. And you got to kind of decide, okay, am I going to get my nose involved and get my business involved, or am I just going to stay not involved? America's going to choose to stay not involved. They're not going to choose a side. However, something's going to happen that's going Americans really weren't big fans of the Spanish. And we're going to kind of take a look why. But ultimately, when the war breaks out, America doesn't get involved. Okay? Well, let's see how this all changes. Okay? So many Americans want to go to war with Spain. And I'm going to explain why. Something bad happens. So let's go to here. There's going to be this kind of rule and law, unwritten law that breaks out that even though a country is in war, you're still technically allowed to trade with them. Now, back during the late 1700s, early 1800s, with Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Okay, if you remember, a lot of times when a war broke out between France and Britain, America refused to trade with them. Remember the Embargo Act? We banned trade on them to kind of avoid situations like this, but it's not illegal, so you can do it. So even though Cuba and Spain is fighting in a war, we still trade with Cuba, specifically Havana, Cuba. Okay, and the reason is Cuba, very similar to Hawaii, has a lot of sugar. All right, and it's a good way to get some sugar out to the south, so we have a good trading relationship with them. So while this war is going on, we trade with them. So we're going to send this boat called the USS Maine. Okay, United States ship. That's what USS stands for. We're going to send this United States ship called the Maine, and we're going to send it from Miami to Havana and back and forth, back and forth. It just constantly goes back and forth, trading, okay, bringing money and goods to Cuba, and they're going to give us sugar, and we're going to have a good trading relationship. At this place called Havana Harbor. A harbor is a place where boats kind of wait and sit there until the trading is kind of commenced. It's like a parking lot for boats, basically. Okay, so the trade can go down. At this harbor, the Maine is going to explode, and over 200 American sailors are going to die. A really unfortunate incident. So immediately, the people of the United States and the government is devastated because you just lost so many innocent people just trading. The thing is, though, no one knows exactly what happened. Okay, the ship explodes. Was the Spanish responsible? The Cubans did it? Was it an accident? Like, how did the ship just randomly explode and kill all these innocent people? So you guys can copy this down. Okay, we are setting up the situation a little bit. But many Americans want to go to war with Spain because when that ship explodes, a lot of Americans' minds start to think, okay, this probably wasn't an accident, and it seems most likely that the Spanish were responsible. So even before the sinking of the Maine, a majority of Americans wanted to go to war with Spain because they believed the Spanish were wrong for not supporting Cuban independence. We just talked about the general that was very, very horrible towards its own people. But here's the truth. Despite what happens, the media is going to have a huge influence in swaying the American people at this time to believe the Spanish were responsible. Now, I'm going to tell you straight out. It would take until 1976 to figure out officially what happened to the USS Maine. But right when this occurs, we start to have some serious problems that are going to lead to Americans blaming the Spanish. And we'll talk about this now. So when the Maine is sunk, the media, and specifically the newspaper journalists at the time, and there's two big ones, Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst, you don't have to know them, but they jump at the opportunity to exaggerate the story of the USS Maine, okay, sinking, and blame it on the Spanish. Okay, and you're going to see how they do this with some very crafty worded headlines. So when you use sensationalized, exaggerated, or biased journalism without all facts being used, it's called yellow journalism. Okay? And we're actually going to see how yellow journalism is responsible in driving American hatred towards the Spanish. Now, it's very possible the Spanish were responsible, but when I tell you we don't officially know till 1976, if you were living in 1898, though, you were 100% sure the Spanish did it because the media basically portrayed that the Spanish were responsible. Okay, and we're going to see kind of how this all goes down. All right, now when we watch some videos on the Spanish-American War, they'll go more into this, but I just want to give you some idea of kind of what these look before we eventually get to our assignment. So if you need to pause the video, but yellow journalism is a huge word. It's a big word that comes up, and guys, you'll see yellow journalism and using slanted or biased media still exists in a big way today. I think it's a huge problem in American society. Huge problem. All right, I think it's something that we definitely need to fix as things go on, but you're going to see how yellow journalism will lead to an entire war with another country. So watch how this goes down. So this is the first major newspaper clipping that you would see. Now, the sinking took place on February 15th, 1898. But take a look here, this date, February 17th, 1898. All right, and right there it says, destruction of the warship Maine was the work of an enemy. You get a $50,000 reward who destroyed the Maine. Okay, basically getting people to believe that this ship was definitely blown up on purpose. This wasn't an accident, and this was the work of an enemy. Who's our enemy? A lot of people made the connection that it's Spain. Okay, William Randolph Hearst, the person that wrote this article, often said a very famous quote, "You furnish the pictures, and I'll furnish the war." Right? Well, take a look at this picture coming up. Main explosion caused by bomb or torpedo, and then you get a big graphic picture or illustration of the Maine exploding. Right? But if you notice here, okay, Captain Sigsbee and Consul General Lee are in doubt. The world has sent a special tug with submarine divers to Havana to find out for what happened. Okay? Sigsbee in a suppressed dispatch to the State Department says the accident was made possible by an enemy. And so a lot of people are starting to believe that, you know what, this was not done by accident. Okay? Very famous political cartoon that went around. Okay, and this is a better thing to do when we're doing this live, and I can kind of ask some questions. Okay, who does this gorilla represent? A lot of people will notice that if you look on the belt, okay, the political cartoon, this gorilla here represents Spain. You can notice that he's holding a bloody knife that has killed some soldiers out in the back. Okay, he's stepping on the American flag. He's holding a gravestone that says Maine sailors murdered by Spain. Right, so it's getting people to sense that Spain was responsible. Now, was it possible Spain was responsible? Is that maybe what is concluded in 1976? It's 100% possible. But the thing is, we don't 100% know. But it doesn't matter because the media portrayed it that the Spanish were responsible, and it got a lot of Americans so upset, wanted to go to war with Spain because they basically killed, in their minds, 258 American innocent people. All right? So you'll see how the media has a huge influence on how people think, okay, especially back in history because there wasn't the internet. You know, people couldn't go up and research their own things. So ultimately, people had to trust the media to give them accurate information. And as you see here, they're not. And a big thing you need to understand is, before we move on, the media is a lot more wanting when there's controversy and when there's scandal and when there's war, because more people read about wars, more people read about controversies, more people read about scandals. Okay, you guys have obviously gone through coronavirus. Okay, maybe kept a closer eye on the news. That's a very big controversy. The January 6th insurrection, you guys probably watch the news a lot more than you usually do because it's a lot more interesting. Okay, and the more interesting something is, the more breaking news it is, the more people watch. You know, you're not going to read or not going to care too much when, you know, they're going over like the economic policy of the president, or they're going over the foreign policy of the president. It's like not as big of a deal. But when there's a scandal, when there's, you know, cheating, and when there's lies, and when there's war, a lot more people are interested, and that's going to read on viewership. Okay. And if you guys are very familiar from YouTube, probably what clickbait is, okay, you get an article of a YouTube video or a headline for a newspaper article that seems so outrageous, right? It says something like, you know, in just 30 days, I found a way to, get into college, right? And like, wow, how do you do that in only 30 days? Like, don't you have to do like 12 years of school? How do you do that? And then you click on the video and like there's like one little shred of evidence that's like kind of true, and the rest of the video is just all like complete lies and like not even close to what the title suggests. All right, so yellow journalism, clickbait, whatever you call it, it's all kind of similar. It's been going on for a very long time in the United States and a lot of countries, but specifically here, it's going to lead to a war with Spain, so it's especially bad. And I'm going to show you some examples how yellow journalism and biased media still exists today. So first and foremost, if you ever go to the supermarket and you see as you're checking out or CVS or something, you see like magazines, and some of the magazine like headlines are like really kind of crazy. These are known as tabloids. That is a great example of yellow journalism. And here's one that one I particularly find interesting is Abraham Lincoln was a woman. Now I'm a social studies teacher. I know a lot on Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln wasn't a woman, right? And John Wilkes Booth was not the lover that killed Abraham Lincoln. That's not true. Okay, but it doesn't matter to a yellow journalist. It doesn't matter to a journalist, because if you like, this is interesting, I want to buy this and read this. Once you buy this magazine, there could be one shred of truth, but the rest of it can be lies. It doesn't matter. You bought their magazine. They made money. The headline got you to read it. This is an example of clickbait on a magazine. This is an example of yellow journalism on a magazine. All right. The real problem is not necessarily the more outrageous things. The problem is when the media kind of takes an event that happens, okay, and eventually slants it in a way that is going to make people believe a certain thing that might not be 100% true. So the biggest one that's ever gotten me in my life where I believe something the media said was this Duke lacrosse scandal. Now, for those that don't know, in like, I guess like 2010, 2011, there was this lacrosse scandal that basically this Duke lacrosse team basically at a party raped and basically defiled an innocent young girl. Like 8 of them, 9 of them just raped and defiled the young girl. And I was outraged because, I was an athlete growing up. I felt horrible. Like, how could this happen sort of thing? How do you do this to a young lady? And for years, I believed that they were responsible, that they should all be sent to jail. They should be, taken out of school, lose their lacrosse scholarships, the whole bit. So for years, I believed this because this is what the media portrayed for months. Okay, these Duke lacrosse kids. It was amazing. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I was watching a documentary on the Duke lacrosse, and the whole time I'm watching the scandal go down, I'm like, these people are 100% guilty. I know they're guilty. I remember the story. As the story went on, it ended up coming out that they were 100% innocent. Basically, the rape victim, okay, admitted she made up the whole thing. Completely made up the whole thing, 100%. But me, following the media's lead, I believe them, okay, to be 100% telling her to be 100% telling truth. I believe the media to be telling the truth, but it wasn't. It was a completely made up story, and it came out in court. And all of these kids went innocent. But for years, I believed them to be guilty. All right. So the media has a huge impact on what's going on. A more recent example, this is Jussie Smollett. This happened, I think, 2 years ago now. This young African-American individual, he happens to be gay. He happens to be on, I think, the show Empire or Power or something. I'm not exactly sure. Pretty big actor. And basically, he was attacked in the middle of the night in Chicago. He was attacked by 2 Donald Trump supporters wearing red MAGA hats, and basically said that they attacked him because he's a gay black man. And again, I was outraged. I go, this is horrible. Like, how could someone do this? This is a real problem. But then, like I say, wait, hold on. Let me just wait for the facts to come out. Let me see what's going on a little bit. For the first couple of days, like, it came out, like, everyone felt horrible for Jussie Smollett. But as time started to go on, people started to realize the story doesn't seem right. He claimed that he got attacked in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. He got attacked during one of the coldest days ever in Chicago. Chicago's a very anti-Trump place, so to find two, Donald Trump supporters in Chicago would have seemed kind of, tough. And then there's some videos that started to come out that had him like walking around completely fine. He was eating a Subway sandwich, holding a Subway sandwich. They basically, once the facts of the story started coming out, and they basically, looked into it, it pretty much came out that Jussie Smollett made up the whole thing. Right? He hasn't admitted to making up the whole thing, but when you look at the facts of the story, it's like, yeah, no, you definitely did not get attacked in the middle of the night by two Trump supporters. Then two of his friends came out and basically admitted, like, yeah, here's the check that Jussie Smollett gave us to act like Trump supporters. And his two friends happened to be black and happened to be from Nigeria, and like they're not even white. And it was basically what Jussie Smollett tried to do was he tried to take the race in our country that, is a little bit of a controversial topic and tried to bring that to the forefront to gain him more publicity. And it was completely made up. But the first couple of days, people were very much believing him. And the media was like, America's a racist place. This is no surprise this happened. This is Donald Trump's America sort of thing. And then you look at the story and it's like, no, it's completely made up. It's not true. Right? But the media kind of portrayed it as this particular individual, because America is this, it's America's a racist place, this happened. And it just wasn't true. Right? So as we go on, as you get older, you're going to become more and more used to seeing this and more skeptical of the media, I think, because they'll mess with you a few times and you'll be like, you know what, I need to kind of let the facts come out before I start jumping to conclusions, because otherwise, I'm going to be believing too many false things. All right, because I've made the mistake, teachers have made the mistake, I'm sure you've made the mistake, and these are just some examples of this happening. And pretty much I don't really know of any unbiased media. So depending on where you get an article or depending on where you get a YouTube video or even the news channels, it's going to be slanted to one side. So here's a great example I want to show you. Last year, obviously with the coronavirus, Donald Trump would hold a lot of press briefings. So I want to show you the mix-up, how basically one TV station would cover the press briefing and another TV station would cover the other. So CNN is generally a very Democrat-leaning, anti-Trump, doesn't like Trump type of news program, where Fox News was a more Trump-supported, Republican-leading news channel. So same press conference, same day, same time. These are known as chyrons. So look at how they basically form his press conference. So here's one here. Trump refuses to acknowledge any mistakes, basically saying that Trump's not trying to take any responsibility. This from Fox News would say, Trump to reporter, you're a fake, basically saying that the media is responsible for all of these lies, right? Here on the bottom left, angry Trump turns press briefing into a propaganda session, basically something that's trying to prop himself on. And then on the bottom right, same time, Trump wants to keep media honest. Okay, same press briefing, same time, basically, coming up with two different versions on how to look at a story. Another one here, New York Times experts try to warn of Trump of coronavirus threat. Basically saying that Trump's not taking the threat of coronavirus seriously. Right? And then on the bottom here, Trump defends reaction to virus outbreak, saying he's doing a good job and he's defending the way he's doing it. Okay, so as you go forward from this point on, anytime you get a news article, okay, you have to kind of figure out, okay, is this someone who is for what's going on or someone who is against what's going on? Is this a news publication that is against the topic or for the topic? All right, because if you just read a news article, okay, as 100% fact and not 100% bias. Now, me as a teacher, I try and teach things as unbiased as I can, but even myself will have some bias towards things. Okay, when I teach certain things, I will come out and say, I am biased in this example. Okay, I am biased in this teacher. Okay, a great example is when I teach about communism. I think communism is not a good political system and economic system. Okay, but I will let you know that I'm teaching it from a more biased perspective, because sometimes it's tough to not be biased, okay? The media pretty much has their agendas, Okay. And as you're going forward, you want to be noticing, okay, like if you get a news article from CNN, okay, about Donald Trump, okay, you have to say, like, okay, I'm reading this from their perspective that, it's probably going to be negative towards Donald Trump. If you're reading it from Fox, it's probably going to be positive towards Donald Trump. What I suggest is whenever you get a topic you're interested in, okay, read both sides of it. Look at the people, look at the news sites that are against, look at the news sites that are for, and then make your own determination. It's the best way I could say you should handle media, because if you just jump to any conclusion by reading one news article, you click on one thing on TikTok or you click on one thing on Twitter or Instagram and think you got all of the facts and like this is 100%. Kids often send me TikToks on historical stuff, and they're fine, but it's like TikTok's what? 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 15 seconds. You think you could get the whole idea of what happened in a huge topic in 30 to 60 seconds? No way. Okay, so if you really, get passionate on a topic, it's important to look at all different news sites, and not just fall into the trap of, okay, I like this news site and their view because it aligns with mine. No, you're not going to get the most accurate news reported. And when you do things like that, and the country as a whole believes 100% what the media is doing, you're going to have problems like the Spanish-American War, where America is going to jump out and blame Spain for this particular event, and that's going to lead to a war with Spain. All right. So with that being said, the rest of the assignment, rest of the day, you're going to be working on, sorry, one second. Okay. So you're going to be working on a PDF that looks like this. Some political cartoon practice. You're going to get some political cartoons, some photos. You have a total of 4 questions. Okay. You're going to look at these questions and answer them here on the remote journalism. Yellow journalism is only 4 questions. Should be very straightforward. You also should be attaching your notes. Okay. And yeah, turn this in by the end of the day. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. We will go into what actually happened to the USS Maine. I think tomorrow's a cool assignment. I do think you will like it. Basically, you're going to do some research. You're going to do an indication on what actually happened to the USS Maine, and then you're going to determine, okay, this is what actually happened, and you're actually going to figure out what actually happened from the studies that come out. Okay, so you're going to actually, be a detective and try and figure out who actually was responsible, because the media blamed the Spanish right away, and they may be right, but they also could not be right. So you're going to try and get the clues and try and become a detective to figure it out. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.